Today I wanted to chat about one of my favorite books, Anne of Green Gables. Earlier this month, I posted a video about Anne Shirley's birthday being in March, but I wanted to talk more about the book today and do a little show and tell of some of the Anne books that I have. I love that people come to Anne in so many different ways, whether they are book purists or they love the 1980s miniseries by Sullivan Entertainment, or maybe only recently came to Anne through Anne with an E. I know there are obviously so many other avenues to Anne as well, whether that's graphic novels or anime cartoons or plays, or even visiting Prince Edward Island. But if you know Anne and you have enjoyed meeting her, but you have not yet had a chance to read Anne of Green Gables, or you haven't read it in a while, I highly, highly recommend it. It is a classic for a reason. So today I'm just going to talk about the first of the Anne books. Obviously, I know there are many others in the Anne series and so many other beautiful characters and stories by Maud Montgomery, but today I'm just going to focus on Anne of Green Gables. I am also very excited to show some of my Anne books in my small Anne collection, so if that is what you are interested in, feel free to use the timestamps at the bottom. I totally understand. But for those of you who are here for a bit of a chattier video, grab a cup of tea or raspberry cordial, or hey, some red currant wine, and let's begin. First off, I am going to approach this video with the thought that if you are here, you have some familiarity with Anne and the stories. I am going to share some of my thoughts and reactions to my most recent reread of the book. And so while I'm not setting out to have a bunch of spoilers, by default, there will be some general parts of the story that I am going to be talking about. So fair warning. I am also hoping that if this is a book you've been meaning to read or reread, that maybe this video could be a little nudge in that direction. And I only say that because I just enjoy this book so much, and I genuinely would love others to have such an enjoyable experience. Here is what I jotted down after my most recent reread of the book. My flippin' goodness, this book is the best. How do I put down words here? I love so much about this story and book. If I could nestle into a book and live there, this would be the one. I first came to Anne through the Sullivan Entertainment production, which just celebrated its 40th anniversary. So crazy. I think I actually watched it when it very first aired, and then we recorded it on our Betamax, so I rewatched this movie quite a bit before it was even available for sale. And then I started reading the books in middle school, and I loved them. I have reread books 1, 2, and 3, and especially 1 and 3 a number of times. Kind of good, bad news is that my memory is not always the best. So I can read and reread a book a number of times and still be surprised and wowed by it as if it were the first time. Anyway, for the month of March and in preparation for doing a few of these Anne videos, I set out to do a reread of at least Anne of Green Gables, which I don't think I had read in maybe 10 years or so. And to be honest, it took some doing to get myself to start reading it, which was kind of weird because I had already reread the book a number of times and I knew I loved it, but my reading time is a little bit more limited these days, and thinking about that small font with my 40-something eyes and remembering that there are a lot of descriptive scenes, which I have always enjoyed, I don't know, it just took some motivating to get myself to begin reading it, which turns out, for those of you who know and love the books, that was all just plain silly because this book is incredible. But I did want to share that even I was experiencing some of that hesitation. So if you are also feeling that way, where you simultaneously do want to read the book, but you find yourself with a little bit of hesitation about it, I totally get it. I was there. I highly recommend kind of pushing through that because it is such a beautiful book. I read almost primarily kids' books or middle grade books or sometimes YA, and this book definitely holds up. It moves along. Each chapter definitely feels like its own story or episode in this overarching story, so it is easy to just dip into one or two chapters for a small amount of time. And as much as I do love a good cliffhanger that keeps you reading and keeps you going, I also do love this that it just sort of wraps up that little episode of what was happening. And I found myself very excited to return to the book every night. Each chapter moves along pretty quickly, and they are all so heartfelt and funny. I often underline quotes in books, and this time I decided to take some notes along the way as well, which was really helpful. And at the end of chapter 8, I wrote this: "My goodness, I will mark every passage. I am so in love with this book and so grateful for this reread." I also made quick little smiley laughing faces in parts just to show parts where I thought it was really, really funny or I laughed out loud. And I was surprised looking back at just how many of these little laughing face emojis I had drawn in the book. At the end of chapter 11, I wrote this: "Oh my, I am cracking up. This is comedy gold." Of course, I also had to suss out how to draw some little broken hearts along the way because there are those moments as well. But like I said, I was just delighted by how many times this book made me laugh. I think reading this book now as a parent just added to the humor and the relatability. Even though neither of my kids really remind me necessarily of Anne, it just added this whole new level and depth to reading the book. I have always loved Colleen Dewhurst's performance of Marilla, how she balanced that sternness with sort of the hidden smirk of the delight she got out of Anne's different shenanigans. And the Marilla in the book, this particular read through, I just loved her so, so much. As much as I adore Anne, Marilla was definitely my favorite character during this read through, which actually really surprised me. I love that as harsh as Marilla could be in some ways and such a product of the time period in which she grew up, there are certain things, certain lines she would just never cross. Like she would never hurt a child. She would never deny Anne a meal just because Anne had done something she disapproved of. And she must feel such this internal struggle battling some of the ideas that she lived with for so long, and then the overwhelming amount of love that she feels for Anne. And it's interesting to see those moments where she's still trying so hard to hold on to some of those past ideals. Like when she says, "I was proud of Anne tonight, although I'm not going to tell her so." I love that after Anne passes out from crying after the tea party fiasco, Marilla comes into her room and brushes her hair from her face and kisses her. I think that is so sweet to see those tender moments where Marilla just can't help but love this girl. I love this line: "Her love made her afraid of being unduly indulgent indeed. She had an uneasy feeling that it was rather sinful to set one's heart so intensely on any human creature as she had set hers on Anne." I think that just sums up that internal battle of trying to balance how she had always been versus how she feels for Anne. And I think because of who Marilla and Matthew are in their different ways, but with their upbringing and the time period and how things were viewed in that small town, I think it just makes their adoption of Anne that much more heartwarming and life-affirming. It seemed like there were definitely more hints towards Marilla's headaches and her eyesight, and even a couple of hints about Matthew's heart problems ahead of time. I mean, not a ton, but definitely more so than I had remembered from watching the miniseries. And then there is Anne and Diana. I just love that within moments after meeting each other, Anne says to Diana, "Will you swear to be my friend forever and ever?" These girls love each other so much and they profess their love, and they each have moments of feeling jealous of other friends that each other has. I know that some people see Anne and Diana's love for each other as just a platonic friendship love, and definitely of its time. Like, for instance, the girls at the school there are really sweet. They will bring enough food to share with their friends, and they will give each other little presents. And on Anne's first day, a girl gives her a little card asking if she can see her home. So I definitely feel like the friendships and the way that these girls relate to each other are of a different time. It's very sweet and very loving and giving. But for those people who do see a romantic love between Anne and Diana, I definitely think there is a case for that too. And I love that in books, it can be whatever the reader sees and how they interpret it, given their life experience and given the time period in which the book is read. I love that there is a scene where Anne just bursts out sobbing, thinking about Diana getting married someday. She tells Marilla that she just hates Diana's future husband so very much because he will be taking Diana away from her. And at one point, Diana gives Anne a wreath of roses with a little verse that reads, "If you love me as I love you, nothing but death can part us two." So whatever your take on their love story, these girls are so devoted to one another and they love each other so very much. And then there's Gilbert. I mean, I remember watching a New Girl episode where Cece says something to the effect of, "I love my fiance so much, but I would throw it all away for Gilbert Blythe." I mean, what is it about this hazel-eyed fella? The book, of course, has the famous carrot scene, but there are also these other just so sweet, adorable moments with Gilbert. He puts a little pink candy heart on Anne's desk that says, "You are sweet." And I had to look up when these conversation hearts actually came into being and into popularity. And it turns out that little conversation hearts actually sort of came on the scene around 1902, I think it was. So that tracks for when the book came out. And at one point, it's implied that Gilbert gave Anne some Mayflowers, which she, of course, rejected with scorn. But Gilbert straight up gives Anne a taste of her own medicine. And I love that in the book, we see these moments where Anne's feelings for Gilbert definitely start shifting and getting a little bit confused. It's really neat to see that progression. There are lots of moments when characters in this book, much like any human, just seem to be full of contradictions. For instance, there is a line that Rachel Lynde says early in the book when she says that when women get to vote, it will be a blessed change, which all sounds very progressive. And yet later in the book, she complains that a female teacher is a dangerous innovation and that there should not be female ministers. Although, of course, Marilla remarks that Mrs. Lynde does her own unofficial preaching quite well. And sweet Miss Stacy, who wants her students to explore and think and learn in new ways, also seems very limited in what she allows them to write and read. And I really, really disliked Anne's creative writing getting squashed. I love that, like with anything, revisiting a story throughout different points in our lives, we will notice and appreciate different things. I so wish that I could find a book report from the 7th grade and just hear what I had to say about this book. But as it is, at least I can start taking some of those notes and recording some of those thoughts now. I wish I had jotted down more thoughts and reactions to some of my other rereads as well. There are certain things I do remember from some of my reads of these Anne books, and they're not always so sunshiny. I do remember at one point, I think in my early 30s, trying to finally read through the whole series. And there was a point in Anne's House of Dreams, which I think is the 5th book. I think it was chapter 19. And I had to stop. I full stopped reading the series. I was just at a point in my life where I could not get past I won't do any spoilers here, but I could not get past a certain part of the story. And so I'd like to go back and finally read through the rest of the books, because that is exactly where I have personally stopped in the Anne series. Even though I have reread some of the books so many times, I have not completed the full 8 books. Because I feel like I know the Kevin Sullivan, Megan Follows, Anne of Green Gables so well, I made notes as I was doing this reread on just comparing what I remembered of the miniseries and then the actual book. And I felt like the 1980s miniseries followed quite closely. I didn't compare scene for scene, and there were some things that were shuffled around a little bit. Anne goes through the haunted wood alone, and the mouse pudding is served to somebody else. There are just like some little things here and there that are shifted around, but I did feel like it followed pretty closely. I cannot speak for Anne with an E. I do not have experience with that one, so I don't know how that compares to the books. The book is from the early 1900s, and it does have a couple scenes where you do see there are a couple of prejudice comments about French boys or Italians. They aren't big moments, but they are in there. And even knowing the time period in which this was written, I was still kind of taken aback when Matthew said to Marilla something like, "Have my tea ready when I get back." So I think any book that is this old, you are going to have moments that are going to warrant discussion if you're reading this with a child or someone younger. One of the hesitations I think I hear some people mention about a book like this or from a while ago are some of the descriptive scenes. And this book definitely has a lot of descriptive nature scenes, but that is one of my favorite parts of the book. They are so beautiful, and I love it. And I love thinking of those scenes or the surrounding area almost as its own character. And there are even a couple instances in the book when Anne's room itself is given its own character, and we hear how it's changed and progressed as she has lived there. One of my absolute wildest imaginations is to be able to go to Prince Edward Island, which gets me both dreamy and feeling a bit forlorn, wondering if and how that will ever happen. But I have this list of sort of literary dream locations that I would love to visit, and Prince Edward Island is definitely at the top of the list. I got this lovely book from the library. I do not own it yet. It is called The Landscapes of Anne of Green Gables, and this is by Catherine Reed. I have not read the whole thing yet, but it just shows beautiful landscape photographs of Prince Edward Island, and the author talks a lot about Maud Montgomery herself, and so it is just such a cool book, and has made me even more excited about the prospect of being able to go visit. Maud Montgomery, whose official name was Lucy Maud, did not go by Lucy, and she did not spell Maud with an E. Her mother actually died when she was only a baby, and so Maud Montgomery lived with her grandparents, who were both very strict. I don't think they had sort of that softer side that we see to Marilla and Matthew. But it was interesting as I am learning more about Maud Montgomery's life, just how many connections there are between her and Anne, even down to the fact that Maud Montgomery would give special names to the places around her, much like Anne does. Honestly, I feel like I could talk about Anne of Green Gables for forever. As it is, I'm not sure if anyone actually is going to watch this, but I'm just so excited to talk about Anne and just reflect on the book, and I'm very much looking forward to continuing on with the Anne books now that I've done this reread of Anne of Green Gables. So I do want to share some of the books that I have. I just have a slight digression here for a second. That I recently read a nonfiction book by Rebecca Romney called Jane Austen's Bookshelf. And in the book, Rebecca Romney sets out to sort of recreate a shelf of books that Jane Austen would have read and been inspired by. And because Romney is a rare book dealer, she also gives asides about book collecting and things like that. And one of her big philosophies is that anybody can be a book collector. You don't have to collect rare or expensive books. And we own quite a lot of books. I buy most of our books used, and I just love having books around for myself and for the kids. But the thought of having an intentional collection, I guess, had just never really occurred to me, which is kind of weird because I frequent used bookshops and I love books so much. So because I read Rebecca Romney's book right before I did my reread of Anne, it was like this light bulb moment that I would love to start this idea of trying to do a book collection with the Anne books themselves. And ever since then, it has been so extra fun to go to the used bookshops that I would go to anyway. But to see what they have, it's almost like this fun little treasure hunt. So I did have most of these Anne books before because I'm just fairly new into this whole idea of doing book collecting. But I think kind of gathering everything together and seeing what I have, I realize that I do have collections of certain kinds of books and certain authors that I just didn't even realize. So I think by sharing it here as a collection, it just kind of is getting me more in that mindset, which I'm very, very excited about. So thank you so much for being a part of this journey as I start figuring out what I'm doing with it. So the first set I have are just these paperbacks of the whole Anne series. I think I got these at various times and locations. This first one has Megan Follows on the front cover, and then we've got these illustrations. So this must be a different company, but the rest of these look like they all are part of the same set. Anne of Ingleside, Rainbow Valley, and lastly, Rilla of Ingleside. And then, as I said, I've started collecting more Anne of Green Gables books themselves. So these are just a couple of the ones that I have picked up recently. I love this little one of Anne at the train station. I think that is so sweet. And this one of Anne out in the field, just more little sweet illustration of her. So I am at this point just trying to collect covers that I find interesting. I really don't have any other criteria than that. I think this was one of my first Anne copies I remember having, which is a 3 volumes in one, although it is not the first 3 books. It is Anne of Green Gables, Anne of Avonlea, and then skips to Anne's House of Dreams. So those 3 are all in here. So it's quite a large book. I kind of wish it were the first 3 books, since Anne of the Island is one of my absolute favorite ones. And then I got this book used. This is an Anne of Green Gables storybook, and so this one is based on the Kevin Sullivan movie. See, this is from an old library. So this one has photographs from the movie, and the text mostly follows the movie itself. Although, as I glanced at the ending, it did seem like it bounced back into the book's ending at that point. I don't know that it follows exactly the entire miniseries movie. I'm looking for a scene when Anne and Diana are in the haunted wood, because that scene is different in the book. It is just Anne going through the haunted wood, but in the miniseries, as I was rewatching it, I think it is hilarious when Anne guesses that one of the ghosts might be Mr. Hammond still looking for his lunch. I found that to be hilarious and just such a great addition to the movie. This Anne of Green Gables cookbook was published in 1985. It's by Kate McDonald, who is actually the granddaughter of Maud Montgomery, I just found that out last night. And so this book actually has illustrations in it to go along with the recipes. It has little quotations throughout the book, mostly from Anne of Green Gables and Anne of Avonlea, although I think there are some from Windy Poplars as well. I have not tried any of these recipes yet, but I just think this book is so sweet. And it looks like when I looked online, there is a new sort of updated version. I don't know if it has some of the same recipes, but when I was comparing some of them, the new book looks like it has more recipes and it has photographs instead of illustrations. So it has photographs of the food, and I don't know if it has any other extras. So I'm excited to see if I can get my hands on the newer version of this cookbook as well. This Anne of Green Gables dress up activity book, I just got this. I did get this from a used bookstore online, but I was so impressed with the condition that this book is in. None of the paper dolls or clothes were popped out. This looks like it was published in 1994. And because Maud Montgomery does such a good job describing everything, the outfits, I can see why this was such a good book to be able to make, because the outfits are described in such detail. So we have this little Anne, try to get a whole view, and then a Diana. And then we've got some of the different outfits. So here's Anne's blue silk dream dress. Diana's best pink dress, Anne's orphanage uniform, and her black and white sateen. I love the green hair too. Anne's brown Gloria and dark green flounce. I love that it has the hairstyles. Her white organdy and her pale green evening gown. Got Diana's wedding dress and her outdoor outfit. Also has ideas for making some of the little hair pieces and accessories. A flowery bracelet and keepsake box. So that is just such a fun book. I was so excited to find that. That's when I started my quest to making my Anne collection a little more intentional. As I was wondering if I had written anything down about some of my reads of Anne, I remembered that I have this little journal that I started years ago, and it's kind of skipped around, but I was writing reflections on some of the books I was reading, which is actually kind of the seeds and inspiration for this channel itself. But I realized that the book itself, the little notebook, is Anne of Green Gables. So it's just got these, I have not written in the whole book, so I can show you some of the back pages, but it's just got scenes from the book. Oh, why is that not focusing? Got scenes from the book and quotations. I love this. I read one of my stories to him and Mrs. Allen, and they both agreed that the moral was excellent, only they laughed in the wrong places. This is from, it looks like, 1994. And then I love these books. These are by Callie George, and the pictures are by Abigail Halpin. And these just come, I forget how many are in this series. I will put a picture up when I find it. But it just contains different bits from the Anne of Green Gables book. But it's just told in this very approachable, simple way. So if you have a child in your life and you want to start reading the Anne stories with them, but not quite read the whole things, these are great for that. They're sort of in between some of the picture books and the book itself. So I think these are really well done, and the pictures are so great. So I have Anne Arrives and Anne's Kindred Spirits, but there are others in the series. I cannot wait to collect more of these. And then Callie George just must love Anne because she also has a set of picture books. This one is illustrated by Genevieve Godbout. This is the Good Night Anne book, and it's just a very, very simple picture book. So it's kind of got the idea of some of the things Anne would say or do, but without being as much of the storytelling as those last books that I showed. And there are different books in this picture book series. I only have this one, but I have gotten other ones from the library, so these are also a lot of fun. I'll put up a picture of some of the other ones. This book I got years and years ago at a used bookshop, and I love this so much. I am going to try to set up a tripod so I can show you how this opens up. It is such a cool book. The house is on the front and the back, and there's a little tie. But when you open it up and you connect the front and the back, you have those together for the moment. You have this beautiful Green Gables house. So the book came with these paper dolls. It's really cool because it also has their backs. I think it just came with these 5. I'll have to look into that. And then I will take you on a tour. So we've got this room down here with the stove, rocking chair, and on the floor above there's a bedroom, and I love that there are these little doors connecting the rooms. So is this Anne's room? I'm not sure. But there's a room here. I've got a dress here and shoes on the floor, so I kind of think it might be Anne's room. And there's a little, I don't know if you can see this, there's a little cupboard. Down here is the kitchen. And this room, which also has a door back to this room. And then on the other side, got the dining area with sort of a walk-through instead of a door there. And above that is another room. Got a sweet quilted bedspread. This one has a door. I love this very green room. And below is a sitting area. And then, of course, when you're done, you can just close up the book. Back to the front. So this is definitely one of my favorite books, and the book that kind of helped me realize that I did sort of have an Anne collection going, even though I didn't realize it yet. And lastly, I don't really have a lot of Anne shirts or trinkets or things like that, but I did get this little pin. It has Anne riding in the buggy with Matthew, and it says White Way of Delight. So I think that is really sweet pin, and I have eyed up a lot of Anne of Green Gables shirts and sweatshirts, but I have not yet purchased one. I cannot wait to continue my reread of the Anne series and to hopefully move past the point where I had stopped previously. As I grow and add to my collection of Anne books, I cannot wait to share them here, maybe in the community posts, or if I get enough I can do a whole nother little addition to this video. If you have watched this, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I know this video is a little bit different from the videos I have done before. The kind of awesome part about not having an audience really at this point is that I can kind of do what I'd like to do and just see how it goes. But I definitely had it in my heart to be able to talk about Anne and to share about Anne of Green Gables here today. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.